Alright team, thank you for your time, thank you for listening. LVD Sport. Today we're going to have a look at this weekend's entrancing action for the interim WBC Flyweight Championship between Sonny Edwards and Galal Yafai. But before we do that, I'll just quickly have a few things to say about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. That's thankfully in our rear view mirror and it's all over with now. That ordeal is forgotten about. Fingers crossed. The things I wanted to say were, I thought Mike Tyson was under the influence of something just to get him through the event. I really thought in the 24 hours leading up to the show, some chickens came home to roost. He should definitely not have been in any sort of position to take part in any sort of athletic event. Of that, there was no doubt. It's a bit more clarification in that I thought that the gloves, the oversized gloves, were for both fighters' benefit. I thought the oversized ring was obviously for the benefit of Jake Paul, and the shorter rounds were for the benefit of Mike Tyson. So it was a win all round for everybody. Everybody got something out of that. And just, I can't believe that they let Mike Tyson, of all people, do an interview 24 hours before the fight or so, 24 hours or so, with a 14-year-old YouTuber. And the interview he gave to her was as if he was talking to a clinical psychologist. Absolutely incredible that stuff was allowed to fly. But I will finish off by saying, to MVP Promotions, not that they're going to be listening to this, of course, but if you sell chicken shit as chicken salad and then the customers come back and complain about it tasting like chicken shit, you don't go telling the customers that it's gourmet chicken shit, do you? That's exactly what they've done. They want all the credit and none of the backlash, which is the Jake Paul act from top to bottom. What he's done now is left himself with little option, but if this is to carry on the way it is, he will either have to fight a legitimate name, there's not too many other Mike Tysons around, or absence make the heart grow fonder, perhaps go away for, not that he's going to do this, but this is his only other option. If you wanted to stretch it out for a bit longer, I would have thought that would be to have a spell away for a few months, get an injury or something happened to him, get the public on his side. I say the public, I say the non-boxing public, and then in 6 months or 7 months time he will try it again with somebody along the lines of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. That's exactly the sort of opponent I think he will be going for next. Anyway, let's get away from that stupid circus and let's talk about what real boxing, and this Saturday's event in Birmingham is a fascinating one. We'll skip through the undercard completely as that's not too much to talk about. But then again, I think that's probably because the two guys in the main event, considering they are flyweights, they are probably taking up the vast amount of budget for the show. Interested to know what the ticket prices are for the event, because I wonder how much money Matchroom will make on this, being as the purse split or the purse amounts was the main reason why we never got to see Charlie Edwards and Cal Yafai, which bleed over into this particular event, which was fun enough was called Bloodlines. I was surprised to find out that between the Edwards and the Yafais, that the amateur contest between Galal and Sonny is the only one to have taken place between them. I never knew that. But there you go. It's on TikTok if you want to see that fight in all its glory. I'm not a TikToker, so I haven't seen it. And besides, it was that long ago that I think it's almost immaterial to say that what happened in that fight is any sort of a gauge of what we're going to see on Saturday. Something else that I did pick up, just doing some previewing for some research for the fight, was that by the time Galal turned pro, or won his Olympic gold, by the time he won his Olympic gold in Rio in 2020, Sonny Edwards has already had 13 pro fights under his belt and was the British champ. So that's the gauge of experience. I do think that Eddie Hearn is wanting to have one of these two knocked off, in terms of, I think he'll either want them to leave Matchroom, or he'll want the loser of this one will have to have a bit of jiggery pokery on his future guarantees going forward. I think is the reason why he's pulled the trigger on these two going at it now. I think if anything out of the two, Sonny could have been lifted into a world championship fight, more than what Galal could. So it's quite intriguing, really. Which one of the two do you think that Eddie has decided that he's the lesser of the two and he wants him out of the way? Quite interesting. Galal isn't much of a commercial draw outside of his home, and it's not as if he doesn't strike as the sort of guy who will go out and promote events and promote shows, whereas Sonny, not that he does, but he does promote in his own way, which has been very effective. I think for matchrooms, as far as they're concerned, I think Sonny means more out of the ring than he does in the ring, which if we consider you're a professional boxer isn't the best thing to say about one, but there you go. Of course, everybody knows that if there's going to be a finish, it will be from, barring an act of God, the finish will be from Galal Yafai. Sonny's way of victory will, of course, be from evasiveness and boxing skill and nous and trickery. Will he still have that? The development of Sonny splitting from Grant Smith, I think, could be prominent and pertinent as regards to who's going the outcome of the fight. He's now training with Chris Williams, who is for Everton Red Triangle background. Sonny has had plenty of fights with Everton Red Triangle guys in his amateur days, so this is quite an intriguing change. The reason given for his leaving Grant Smith was that Grant Smith trains Junaid Boston, who is fighting Ishmael Davis, who is managed by Sonny Edwards, who trains at the same gym with Boston and Grant Smith. So that's Sonny's reasoning. Reading the boxing news this week, he's got all sorts to say about the amateur system and this, that and the other. And I do think these distractions could become something of a hindrance to him, rather than concentrating on the fight. Though I do think if Sonny does have that kind of quality, similar to Floyd Mayweather, that's any time I'm going to be comparing Sonny Edwards to Floyd Mayweather, I must say, that he has that ability to compartmentalise things which happen in the ring and outside the ring. But I think to this point, he's been able to get away with that against fighters without the skill and nous and experience that Galal has. So that's going to be an interesting development. Grant Smith apparently is going to be not in the corner, I don't think, but he's going to be supporting Sonny Edwards. That's what Sonny told IFL TV earlier on today, I saw. So I'm interested to see if that comes to fruition. There's been some fallout between the other Yafai brothers, Cal and Gamal, and Charlie. It's been not kicking off as such, but there's been some words exchanged between the three during the open workouts during the week, which all adds to the promotional pot in terms of building up interest for Saturday night. But as for in terms of a prediction, I'm going to say I think Galal Yafai is going to win it on points. I think Sonny will come on strong during the back end. That's of course if he hasn't suffered a damage via that cut. I think that cut could become a potential problem. If it doesn't become a problem on Saturday, it will be down the line. And I think that perhaps Sonny spreading himself a bit too thin, managing fighters, training for fights, stirring up a bit of trouble here, there and everywhere. And I think this is the fight which could come back to bite him against someone who doesn't engage in that sort of foolishness, shall we say. Galal is pretty much focused on his task and what he has to do and his training and getting the job done, and I think that would be to his benefit on Saturday. Something else I didn't pick up was that Sonny Edwards was complaining that Galal trains with Robert McCracken in Sheffield at the Team GB gym, and he gets all the benefits of that in terms of like rest and recovery and the indoor track, the outdoor track, and I heard him going on about all those sorts of things. But that's been going on now for 12 years or more, and there's been plenty of fighters who have got the benefit of that. I didn't notice anybody saying anything when Carl Froch was doing it, and Carl Froch wasn't even a member of that amateur system which had the benefits of that use of the time. Carl Froch turned over in 2002 when it was pretty much just a couple of rings, and Robert McCracken wasn't even anything to do with the GP set up at the time. No one complained when Carl Froch was getting the benefit of Sheffield. Nobody complained when Anthony Joshua was getting the benefits of Sheffield, but for some reason it's come up now. And of all the times to come up, Sonny's decided to do it this particular time. So, is that going to be a factor? Is he, rather than concentrating on what he should be doing, he's concentrating on what others are doing? Well, Galal is just keeping on and focusing on Sonny Edwards and getting the job done, which I think is going to be the difference on the night. And I think that Galal Yafai is going to win a 12-round majority, close-ish decision, split decision or majority decision, which Sonny Edwards is going to have plenty to say afterwards, which I think was kind of how he would like it. I think anything to, if he's going to lose, he wants to lose in such a way where he can complain about it bitterly, because he is a quality complainer. But that's my prediction. Galal Yafai majority decision 12 over Sonny Edwards. I think the fight won't live up to the expectation, but it will be a watchable fight rather than an engrossing fight. And the last thing I was going to touch on today was the news of Conor Benn, who appears as if he's had clearance to resume his career. I'm not sure about regarding applying for a British Boxing Board of Control licence, what will happen there. I assume on the face of it he will apply for it and likely get it, barring of course Robert Smith hasn't got any old coals he wants to go over. And the other thing I was going to say, I do find it quite ironic that it took the National Anti-Doping Panel over 2 years to decide that VADA could not be held as the jurisdiction for which the two failed tests were given, and that the board cannot legislate on VADA within VADA testing, because VADA is not part of UCAD. The only drug testing agency that the British Boxing Board of Control should recognise is UCAD. That, of course, was up for debate some time ago when Robert Smith and the board added in the caveat of any other competent body. That obviously has fell by the wayside legally. Conor Benn's lawyers have managed to back that out of the way, and I think it's all going to be on jurisdiction. But the ironic thing about all that, of course, is that, as I said, it's taken 2 years for the National Anti-Doping Panel to suddenly decide that VADA don't have the weight to do so. But it suddenly happened within that 6 weeks period of a certain Matchroom commercial superstar in Anthony Joshua collapsing in the most public way, damaging way for Matchroom. And now, when they need a new, fresh commercial superstar to come up from the doldrums and help them out, the National Anti-Doping Panel do that for Matchroom and say, hey, guess what? We've decided that VADA aren't in control anymore, or that the British Boxing Board of Control can't use VADA's testing for their own purposes. And just like that, voila, Conor Benn is back, and British Boxing, or Matchroom, have a new commercial star to get behind finally, after having him almost sat on the sidelines for the past 2 years twiddling his thumbs. Isn't it funny how things work when it comes to British boxing and big money draws? Anyway, that's it from me this time. Freezing cold. And the time is right now 4 AM. So I'm just now to finish this up, uploading this to YouTube. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it this far, you deserve a medal. This is LVD Sport, out for the count.